Welcome to the Farm Family Harmony podcast. I'm Elaine Fraze, Farm Family Coach, here with another episode full of transition tips, tactics, and sometimes hard truths to get harmony on your farm. Hi there, folks. Welcome again to another episode of the Farm Family Harmony podcast. I'm Elaine Fraze, Farm Family Coach, and today I'm really excited to introduce to you Dr. Ken Keis, who's an old friend of mine. Old can be an adjective that we use well because we were just discussing before we came on air that we have lots of gas left in the tank to do what we're passionate about, and that's why I've invited Ken today. He is a global authority on behavioral assessment strategies and an expert in leadership, purpose, and wellness. More importantly to me, he's a farm kid who became an amazing colleague with me as a professional speaker, but also for the assessments that his group has taught my group in terms of our coaching team and how that impacts you as the listeners, as farm families who want to know, according to what his book says, why aren't you more like me? So he has millions of words of content, over 4 million words of content, 4 books, and a dozen assessments. So Ken, you're a great speaker and trainer and a podcast guest yourself and a host. So as president and CEO of CRG International, what is your true mission?
Well, the bottom line is to help others to live, lead, and work on purpose, for people to realize their full potential. And then you and I both know that that is not true for a very high majority of individuals on the planet, including the agricultural space. I mean, as you said, I grew up on a dairy farm, 3rd generation, firstborn male, Eastern European descent. A little pressure to hang out on the dairy farm.
Yeah.
But after 2 or 3 years of hanging out with my dad, and I love my dad, he's 90, he's still alive at the time of recording this, it just didn't really work. I mean, what I wanted to do, what he wanted to do. And it was interesting. I think the theme of this show is really around communications. One of the main reasons I left the farm is we just couldn't communicate. We couldn't accept one another, our differences, culture, style, all of values, all of those things led into this sort of wedge between us. I started my own dairy farm. And then very quickly, as you said, I went from an agricultural sales rep into sales training in the late 80s. Man, I'm dating myself. You talked about old. But lots of energy left, and then just progressed over the last 34, 35 years in this whole area of assessments, leadership, communications, emotional intelligence, values, purpose. Just sort of a whole body of work that no way you could have convinced me when I was in my 20s that this would be where we would end up.
Well, and you've done a lot of hard work, Ken, and you also have your doctorate. But what I want to tell you the story about so the listeners can hear it is I often tell the story of my husband, Wes, our son, Ian, and his girlfriend at the time, Kendra, sitting here in our living room after we'd done the personal style indicator, which is one of your assessments. And I refer now to Wes as Mr. Ambitious Determined. Ian is responsive, balanced. Kendra is practical, thoughtful, and I am influential. So can you just describe for the audience why that's an important tool for farm families?
Well, when we think about communications, everything's about relationships, right? You know, if we break down what we say, what we don't say, the sin of omission applies in communications. So I didn't say anything. Well, that's exactly why, Ken, we're having a breakdown. You said nothing about where we're going, what we're doing. So let me just back up for a second and give the audience just a little bit of background to what is personality. So you've heard of personality, you've heard of personal style. So personal style in our definition is your natural predisposition, meaning you're born a certain way, and how you approach and interact with the environment, which includes time, people, tasks, and situations. So there are some individuals who just love people and connect, and that's you, Elaine, and you're networking, you're chatting with other people. Then there'll be other people in your family is that they can just sit on the tractor all day, and if they didn't see another person, they're just perfect. Or maybe it's somebody who is in the back room doing some data or accounting, and they're fine by just being task-oriented. So what the research shows is that every single person on the planet has a personal style or personality, as other people call it. Now, there was a competitor who did a study that said, okay, what percentage of people can realize their potential if they don't know this personal style? And they said 2%, meaning 1 out of 50 people will realize their potential. And here's why. It's a natural predisposition. You are born this way. So those of you that are listening, if you have 2 or more children, are same parents, same environment, same sort of structure, yet they're different in many cases, in most cases. Why are they different? Because they are biologically wired differently. And so why it's important for us individually and in families and teams and organizations to know is because I need to be able to play into my lane. So if I'm doing a role, or responsibility that's not a fit, which a lot of cases can happen in family businesses, and I grew up in one, so I understand that, then if I'm not a fit, then just because I'm inheriting this opportunity, this role, this farm, doesn't mean I should be there, because I'm doing a disservice to myself. I'm miserable. The other side is a lot of times we have different communication styles, not right, not wrong. And just because you have your style doesn't mean it's going to work for me. So you have a lot of breakdown in family businesses, farms included, where the nature of the person and the nature of the position and each other is not really taken into account. Oh, so I know how to plant my crop. Great. So I know how to milk the cows, which is what we did. The reality is, how can I communicate with one another? And we know there are so many breakdowns with communications in all these different families. Why is that? Well, they haven't developed a culture, or also, Elaine, what you teach when you're coaching, which is so valuable for farms, is around coaching people to understand the skills of communications in addition to that.
Well, we call these phrase that pays, and kind of a play off of my surname, but I quite often can, just what we've been saying, different is not wrong. It's just different. And you use the term wired, and I use that term all the time because I was trained under you. And after we did the assessment with our son and his girlfriend, a month later, they were engaged. And I think part of it was also having clarity that there was a vision for us to be 4 people who are different, but to play as a team on the farm. And also there was space for everyone to use the skills the way they were wired. And my daughter-in-law was trained as a nurse. Her other option was to be an accountant. But if you look at her score for cognitive detail, it's super high. My score is super low. I will never do the farm books. And I know people, particularly women, who are by default doing the accounting on the farm, and they're not wired for detail, and they should not be doing that job.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things, so I've been around the personal style indicator since 1990. So 34 years at the time of the recording, and now I'm the co-author after I bought the company 22 years ago. But one of the things, a lot of times people will take these personality assessments to figure other people out. But what I really came quickly to note is that completing one of these assessments is for yourself.
It's
way before self-discovery, self-awareness, self-consciousness, whatever it is. And here's why, is that I need to understand what my propensities are, what my the drivers are, what my strengths are. We believe in a strengths model. Trying to develop your weaknesses is highly overrated. Is I need to play to my strengths. So what are they? Can I articulate them? Can I communicate those to others? A lot of times if I say to my family farm, I don't want to do that job, I might be seen as a prima donna, when in fact you don't want me to be working the mechanics, right? Because I'm not wired that way. Now, on our family farm, my brother was wired that way. So a very high cognitive C, detailed oriented. He'd never gone to mechanic school. He's actually a full-time mechanic at a trucking company now. Never had formal training, but still better than most who have. Mm-hmm. But at 21 or 22, he split the tractor, pulled out the clutch, replaced it on the old International 986, if anybody is remembering, and did that.
We have a 984. The 984 still going.
That's even an older tractor. So and so he was gifted that way. He hated cows, but we were a dairy farm. So very quickly, he just, it sort of was a natural, awkward thing. He never milked the cows, but he was good with the equipment and all the feeding and all that kind of stuff. But it was just sort of by accident. It wasn't intentional. And as farm businesses grow into these multi-million-dollar structures of businesses, you need to treat it professionally. This accidental, we're just a family, we're just hanging out, that's not okay anymore.
Well, I think the other thing is, too, in agriculture, there's a real labor gap. So a lot of farms are having to rely on non-related employees. And I think this is an excellent tool to actually use as an assessment to find out who are these people that you're bringing into your team, and who are these people that are going to drive your $1 million combine and your $800,000 tractor, and that maybe do have different task orientation. So could you just explain to people the 4 different lanes? We've talked about cognitive detail. I mentioned that my husband is high for task. What does that mean?
Well, there are many personality models out there. We use what we call a 4-dimension model: affective, expressive, behavioral action, cognitive analysis, interpersonal harmony. So all of us have all 4. I don't like the cute assessments that make you a color or some kind of animal, because that really does a disservice. What you started the show is that you were describing what we call patterns or blends, and 90% of the population that are listening to this are a blend of some sort or another. But let's just kind of go through. Many of you have heard these sort of snippets. We have uniqueness in how we designed ours, because ours is unique, and we'll give you to the introversion and extroversion definition here in a few minutes. But so we have these 4-dimension behavioral action. Just as it sounds, this is not personhood. We really want to talk about behavior and emotion, action-oriented, task-oriented, nonverbal. So when we say nonverbal, one of the things we mean by that is not a lot of language.
Few words.
Are you 2 words. Are you fine? Yeah, how you doing? Fine. Anything good or new? No. Want to do something together? Maybe. That's it. There's not going to be a big story about it. So when they show up, a lot of times you think these people are non-emotional, they don't care. That's not true. It's just more at a below the level, kind of iceberg kind of thing. They're goal-oriented, they're focused. They're not worried about your feelings as much. So sometimes their intensity, they're very impatient with people who don't get it quickly.
They want
typically fast learners. They want it to be fast. They're typically fast learners. They want other people to have pace. I mean, they'll go to, let's say, the parts department in some kind of store or whatever, and try to get something, and they'll interrupt the line if the line's not moving fast enough, or if it's in slow traffic, that'll drive them crazy, or somebody's not learning. They could get frustrated in having enough patience to teach people properly. Now, the other thing is these people value independence almost to a fault, because they'll give independence to other people quickly when really they probably need an umbilical cord a little bit longer.
And maybe some more training time and mentorship.
Yes. And a lot of times behavioral action individuals might not have the patience for that. Now, the other side is they could be workaholics, and they could actually try and burn themselves out. Pardon me?
We have a lot of workaholics listening to this podcast.
And so can you take care of yourself, or you're stressing yourself? And then you also think I'm the only one who can do it, because you don't have the patience to train somebody else. So now that's not right. That's not wrong. You are given the vision. You're given the drive. You have this physical capacity, which is more than any other of the 4 dimensions, just to work. Like you're the 16-hour-a-day person, and you're fine by it, and you expect everybody else, or somebody else, when they get to 12 to 14, they're done, because they're physically done. It's a physicality. This is not, in many cases, people think it's just a choice and you're lazy and that's your attitude. In some cases, yes, but in many cases not. I am just wired differently, biologically, physically. And so you have more capacity than others just to be able to put that much effort in. When we think about cognitive analysis, that makes sense to most people. As you think about that, I'm cognitive, I'm detailed oriented. I see what's not there. So there's 100 words in an essay, 99 spelt right, 1 spelt wrong. They see the gap. That is why there are ones that could be in accounting, they could be in detailed orientation, they could be nursing. In mechanics, nursing, taking care, though all kinds of styles are in nursing, right? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't depict so much the career as it does the job title as far as the personality. So you want structure, chaos, can really stress you. So if it's not orderly, if it's not structured. So a lot of times, if you think about the farming life, it can be chaotic.
Well, it's pretty versatile. Every day there's a new adventure, right?
That's right. So so these people that have a lot of cognitive analysis, surprises, spontaneity, that's not really your cup of tea. So that'll stress you a little bit more than somebody else who that's what they thrive on. So not right, not wrong. Now, the one thing about the cognitive analysis individual, they have the ability to see what's not there. So in other words, they have this sort of critical eye, this ability to see the gaps. And we want to have that in airplane mechanics, all these kinds of things. However, the backside from a relationship point of view if I take that same strategy into my relationship and I point out everything you do wrong,
all my faults, Jen.
all your faults. I think, well, and you're gonna interesting. Even though they're introverted in our model, they're task oriented, verbal, and introverted. So that really confuses people. Verbal means they need all the data, all the information before I can make a decision. But my challenge I was about to say is that you need to really be careful and awake and aware that the critical nature that can come with this style really can toast other people. And so you have this gift to see what's not there. But if you're talking to your son, your daughter, your wife, your husband, your significant other, your employee, and you just shred them or point out all their deficiencies, and I had a grandmother like that, that's demoralizing. That is, so that takes people out. And so, yeah, and because you're task-oriented, you're less emotional. So no, just get it done right. You don't get that. What you did is you just demoralized the entire team. And then when we think about affective expressive, which you have a fair amount of that, Elaine, in your profile.
So this is always remember, I just have to interrupt and tell you, I'm the one who walks under the airline security straps, not around them.
Exactly. Or watch somebody else do it. And so when we think about affective expressive, they're very creative, spontaneous, have a lot of different ideas of how things can happen. Now, here's what sometimes these people can cause concern, Elaine.
Yes.
Because they need to articulate their creativity verbally. They're not saying they want to do this, but they can freak everybody else out. Like
talking through the idea.
Talking through the ideas. It's not an idea. It's ideas, it's a plural. So there's all these different possibilities that come with it. They're very good networkers, connected with individuals, but they also have this idea of being able to see how to go over, under, or around. In other words, if we can't do it this way, they'll think about different options to be able to achieve the outcome, as well as the behavioral action can do that as well. So it's not right, not wrong. Now, when we think about playing to our strengths, A's really love relationships. That becomes first. But when they are responsible for tasks, they can get sidetracked. They could be ADHD people. They can be shiny object individuals. So we say A's, there's a word you need to learn that they dislike the most, and that's the word discipline. So A's can also be exuberant and overpromise and underdeliver. Yeah, no problem. We're going to get that all done by Friday.
I think in Colby, they call that quick start.
Yeah, exactly. So
follow up.
Keep going. Exactly. So they get going. So a lot of times you can erode your credibility as an affective expressive person by overpromising and underdelivering. So we're not changing who you are. We're helping you to be conscious, awake, and aware that when you share something, do you really, really believe? Because these are the most optimistic. They like to be liked. They don't want to disappoint people. Sometimes they say yes when they should say no because they want to be part of the group. So be able to say, you know what, I can't get it done by Friday, but I can by Saturday. And just be real about it, and don't overestimate the capabilities, because when the moon, the stars, and the planets all line up and nothing happens, then you might be able to get it done Friday, but that almost never happens. So that is an awareness for them and a discipline for them. And then the other one is, just because you don't have cognitive analysis in your profile lane doesn't mean that you don't submit the expenses to the farm.
It's just very low. I'm just not
exactly. So that means sometimes we have to strategize as affective expressive about if we have these detailed requirements. Maybe I just have these little minute times in the day or an hour that I dedicate.
Well, and I think in a practical way for our listeners, for me, it's working when my energy level is the highest, which is in the early morning, and also Google Calendar is my friend, because I'm blocking out time to accomplish certain tasks that do take a lot of detail. And my other friend is the Pomodoro, which I've mentioned to my audiences many times, which is a 25-minute unit of time. And in Italy, their kitchen timers apparently look like tomatoes, and Pomodoro is tomato in Italian. But in 25 minutes, you can get a lot done. So if I can administer or give people the personal style indicator.
By the way, we have one more dimension.
Yes. Okay. Let's finish that.
C or A would go away. So there's one more. We're not trying to forget them because they are sometimes taken for granted. That's interpersonal harmony. So a lot of times they think the affective expressive person is the most people-oriented, but in fact, that's not true. Interpersonal harmony is the person who is the caregiver, who is the supporter. They're introverted, nonverbal, and task-oriented. Well, that's really or people oriented. So it's messes with individuals where they will do things at the deference of themselves. So they can become victims.
Yeah.
They give up their own needs. And so self-care is one of their highest responsibilities, because they can actually be and play the victim and actually woe is me. So they're also the peacekeepers. They don't like conflict. So whenever the farm has tension-related conversations, they will withdraw and try to people have not talk about it. And in fact, this is where you have to step up, where you have to speak your truth. You know, one of the things this group has to learn is assertiveness and not aggressiveness. Assertiveness is when you mean no, when you say no, you mean no. And the other one is that conflict isn't always bad. Now, you dislike it. It affects you biophysically, actually can make you feel ill. But the reality is that by avoiding the conflict, it's actually extending it. You stuff it, and then actually these people can become the most bitter because they haven't shared anything. They haven't let it out. They've sort of stuffed this thing in. And so they actually invented the word sabotage. So even though they're these nice, friendly, supportive people, the caregivers of the world, the accountability to this group is that you need to kind of speak up, and playing a victim is not okay. You're responsible for that. And yet at the same time, we know that you're going to be there for us. You're going to have our back. You're a great support person. And so these are amazing people to have around. At the same time, they need to take responsibility for how they're feeling, responding to the environment.
Well, and the key word you said at the top of that conversation is self-care. And I've heard it said many times, self-care is not selfish. And I had just written a blog called "Why is it so hard for farm moms to ask for what they need?" And conflict avoidance is another path that I'm beating the drum on, Ken, to get farm families to understand that conflict is not bad. Unresolved conflict is not helpful, but you should see conflict as a business risk management strategy and something that can help you get a lot more clarity. So tell us the easiest way for farm families to get a hold of a personal style indicator.
Well, first of all, is to contact Elaine. Yeah. And so Elaine markets those. She's one of our licensed associates. She's worked with it for years to serve the farm families. So contact Elaine. She's got all the links and things there. And obviously, my book, Why Aren't You More Like Me, is available online to get from our site or the Amazon site. It's available under Ken Keis, Keis. So that's a possibility there for you as well. And of course, you have all our contact information, so I want to drive you there. We do have a gift for people at the end of the show that will tell them about where they can get a free gift for my purpose book, ebook as a download.
There's one more thing I want to talk before I let you go, and that's when I talk about the culture is actually the culture of the farm is the actual glue that holds the farm and the family together. And it consists of what you believe to be true, which are your core values, how you behave towards each other, and how you make decisions. So it was very helpful to me way back in the day, and I don't even know what year it was that I did, but I pulled it out of my files today, Ken, and it's my values style indicator, because I use a cloud of values words quite often in a family meeting. And what I found really interesting when we did this with our family is I'm the only one in our farm team that has a high value of independence, where everybody else has a high value on teamwork, which makes total sense to me when I'm the one going away speaking and writing and coaching and doing other things. But honesty is also a high value for me, spirituality, intimacy, friendship, and challenge. So tell the audience how this could be another eye-opener in terms of knowing why they might be unhappy on the farm if there's a values clash between them and their parents, or them and their spouses.
And them in the position and the opportunity. Right. So the values preference indicator is actually built out of the personal style indicator. Okay. It is a sub-tool or a sister tool to the personality assessment. And so when we talk about our values, they are internal behavioral motivators, meaning if this value, which also has related needs and fears, is not present, then I don't feel fulfilled. We believe that these mostly stay consistent throughout your lifetime, just like the personal style indicator does not change. Personal style indicator, if you fill it out now and 6 years from now, for the most part, 90% of people will get the same pattern. That's because, if I don't have consistency, then Elaine will become like Ian and Ian will become like Elaine tomorrow. Well, I need to count on me being me tomorrow, not right, not wrong, but I have this consistency, this theme, this thread that I can count on. So values, this is one of our most popular tools by far, because everybody talks about what's your values. Now there's different kinds of values. There's sort of, I'll call team values, let's say like excellence or customer service or variety or respect. But these are the internal values, Elaine, where when I understand what I stand for, I actually equip myself, my stress levels go down. Cortisol, so there's research that says that my cortisol level goes down when I know what my core values are. My objectivity to make better decisions improve because I'm not waffling. That's right. My ability to actually receive negative feedback increases because my personhood, my self-worth is stronger, is more established. And those of you that have kids, is when teenagers go through this process, their GPAs improve as well because they're not identifying with their peers for who they are. They're identifying with self. Now, this is not from and this is not from a self-centered point of view, but from a self-honoring point of view. So I play this game. I said, what would it mean if you could make the right decision every time from this point on? And it's a play on words is that what if I could make values-based decisions versus situational? There are so many choices, so many options now. It's enormous. It's infinite. But what if I was to take and establish what my core top motivational values are? And then I filtered all my decisions and opportunities through those values. And I'm making the decision. So you have independence. But if I was to give you a job or a role and I put you in the back office and you couldn't talk to anybody and whatever, I know that you'd be miserable from a style and a values point of view right away. And those of you that are listening to this, Elaine's head is just about coming off her head with, I can't do that. But values then become this real release for us. I remember doing a program for an agricultural group when I first got involved with CRG. And there were about 30 or 4 people in this agricultural room. And there was a 23-year-old in the back of the room. And what we get people to do when we get to the end of the tool, here's your top 7 values. Is this value being met? Give it a plus. Is it a negative? Give it a minus. And are you being fulfilled by these values? Is your life fulfilling these values? And this one person who's 23 in the back would just look disturbed. And I went and pulled him aside and he said, why is that? And he says, well, every one of my values is a minus. And I said, why is that? My whole life I've been living what my parents want, not what I want.
Wow, that's so hard.
So when we think about cultural pressures and expectations, especially in family farms, because there's so many rituals and
unwritten rules,
legacy,
all them.
Legacy, the underpinning cultural norms that are sort of expected. I was the black sheep of the family because my style is behavioral action. It's this drive doing it. And I said, I wasn't trying to offend anybody in the family. I just wasn't going to accept what was. In other words, I was constantly pushing the barriers of what's a new opportunity? What's something new that we could do? And I wasn't trying to be rude about it, but I wasn't trying to be nice about it. I was just trying to be pragmatic. So from a values, go ahead.
Well, I just want to interject there when you talk about how you grew up on the farm. I just want to hold up this copy of the pledge from 4-H Canada, and Senator Rob Black is on the front cover, and he's a big ambassador and supporter of 4-H. But this is the issue, Ken, that you're in, because you and I both share the most distinguished alumni award from 4-H. I got mine in 2018 and you got yours in 22, correct?
Correct. And the reason I have mine is because you were willing to be the nominee. So thank you for that.
I just think it also speaks to, because what I remember about your story that I found so fascinating is that when you wanted to learn about judging dairy cows and get really good at it, you didn't just use the local 4-H leader. You talked to people all across Canada and you went to things and you did the work and you put the time in and you allowed yourself to be taught by other mentors. And I think in farm families, there are some disconnects where people listening are going, oh, Elaine, I don't know how much longer I can stay on this farm in this culture. And I'm saying as a farm family coach, where is it written that you have to be working with your family? If you're wired for a different culture or want to create your own culture that's healthier for you, there's lots of joint venture opportunities and other possibilities for you to get that connection.
Well, I mean, just to support people that are listening, and this is not right or wrong. I think when we're miserable, there could be multiple things that contribute to it. Could be culture, could be communications. You could actually be doing the right role or responsibility, but the culture is so toxic that it's just eroded your soul. On the other hand, you could have great communications, but you're doing a job that it's not a fit. So as I said at the beginning of the show, firstborn, third generation, Eastern European descent on the farm, went to college, came back, we did a big expansion. And when I said I'm leaving, my dad said, we did all of this for you. And so the reality is that he did it for me, but I wasn't included. I was just sort of like,
you were a part of that
hired hand.
Passion, yes.
I was part of that hired hand, and this openness and conversation about where we're going and what we're going to do and what did that mean, that really didn't happen. Now, I don't blame my dad. My dad was, his father passed away when he was 16. He took over the farm. His eldest brother passed away when he was 17. So he had to quit high school. So he had a rough life in those areas. So he didn't really learn how to collaborate with father, son, and brothers. He was kind of on, and his mother was, my grandmother was unfortunately quite a critical individual. So that nobody was ever good enough kind of things to do in their job. So I could see that they were doing the best that they can. And that's why, Elaine, I just want to endorse what you're doing with family farms. There's such a need out there, is to think that you can do it on your own. What do you think is going to change it? Nothing is. You bring an accountant, you bring a lawyer in, you bring a specialist in to help you with different parts of the business. Farm relationships and structure and communications is the same thing. I mean, I have a coach. I've had a coach for 20 years that helps me with the work, and I'm a coach other coaches on how to coach. So why would I need one? Well, just like, Wayne Gretzky had a coach. Hello, best hockey player ever. And yet and all top athletes have some kind of coach to help you to go to that next level. That's why my encouragement is farm families, or any business for that matter, or you go and you lean into this and you develop yourself so that you can bring your best self. If the stats are that 80% of people are miserable for mildly irritate the load that applies to family farms, that's not okay. That's my passion, is that we shouldn't be stuck in this misery, because I believe that we're all divinely created with an assignment, a goal, a purpose, whatever you call a backswing, a sweet spot, whatever word you want to use, for us to be able to go to the next level. And only when we take responsibility for our gifts, talents, abilities, style, values, and then lean into those, not make an excuse for the weaknesses. In other words, just because Elaine and I don't have detailed orientation doesn't mean we can't do our CRA or our IRS tax returns.
Or get our
we still have to do that. But we have other people that prepare it for us because we're gifted in other areas. So that's the same thing on the and the other one that happened, and sorry for interrupting myself, I did a lot of work in other family businesses. So I was in the auto industry for 10 years as a consultant, in addition to agriculture. And so it was interesting. A lot of these automotive dealerships were family run. I remember one family had 10 employees, were all family.
Wow.
And there was no fit, but culturally, because they were from Asia, they had this sort of cultural overtone, family first. It was a bit of a very nice, friendly people, but a disaster, because people were doing jobs they weren't supposed to do. So just because I'm family doesn't mean I'm a fit for that opportunity. And you are not, my family said I betrayed them, but that's not really true. They felt betrayed because they thought that's the way that it could or should be. The reality is that all of us have our own calling and assignment. And if it's supposed to be on the farm in whatever context, great. If it's not, then honor that as well. And the same thing for you parents, where you have kids. Don't be putting sort of a
box,
a cutter pin into that pin, and don't let them out. Make sure that they have an opportunity to investigate what is it that they're really, really supposed to be doing, so that they can bring their best self. And the reality is, if you have 2 or 3 people on your team, or even one, where it's not a fit and they're down and they're miserable, their performance, you cannot sustain engagement in life if you're not a fit. And that meaning you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing from a purpose point of view, and or the role is not a fit from you style wise and or values wise. So when those things are aligned, then it's, life's never 100% easy. We all have stuff. All of us do. So why wouldn't you try to go onto the easy button from Staples a little bit more by getting into those zones and in doing things that are better fit for you?
Right, exactly. So Ken, I want to thank you for your passion of the work that you do. You've also written a book called Quest for Purpose, and the gift that you want to give listeners today, they can have just by going to www.kenkeis, that's KENKEIS.com/family. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. And also just encourage you as listeners to share this with your family. Listen as you're checking cows or going out to take a walk, and think about if your life isn't how you wanted it to be, what could you do differently? And one of those things is to do some internal work and use the assessments that Ken has spent years developing and understanding to help you get that values alignment. And I know that one of my highest values is friendship. So my current struggle is, how many Christmas cards can I write? And you know, Ken, I've come up with a better solution, is that if I don't get cards written to my friends, I really know how to pick up the phone and have a conversation, which is much faster and to me much more dynamic. So sometimes as we age in place on our farms and do different things in our businesses, we come up with new strategies to get what really feels grounded for us. So thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. Elaine, just a little sidebar. Texts work now as well. So those of us that have smartphones, hey, I was just thinking about you, Elaine. How you doing? And you send a text and say, whoa, it's there instantly, and so it's there. So thank you, everybody, for listening. If they want to find out more or we can support them in any way, of course, we just love our partnership with you, Elaine, and we'd just love to serve. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and thank you for coming. And folks, if you want to reach out to us at farmfamilycoach.com, just go to the contact page and ask for a free discovery call of 15 to 20 minutes, and one of our coaching team would be really, really happy to listen to your story and help you get unstuck. So until next time, I'm Elaine Fraze with Dr. Ken Keis, wishing you a very good season wherever you find yourself today. And remember, it's your farm, it's your family, it's your choice, but let's all choose to find harmony through understanding. Bye for now.